Hi, Mark at Breakwater Strategy. Welcome to IR Magazine's IR TV. We're here at NIRI Chicago 2023. Could you tell us what impressions you're taking away at the moment from the conference so far?
Well, it's terrific to be back. Boston last year was terrific. This event has been incredibly well constructed. It's terrific to see old colleagues, meet new folks, and really understand the key sets of issues that are emerging over the balance of the year. In particular, ESG has been a hot topic, as you would expect. I think in that context, folks are trying to think about what is our positioning as an organization going forward. And in our context, I think there are really two ways to think about that. I think one of my clients, who I think is a leader in this space, is thinking less about ESG and more about deconstructing that to really focus on a very strong governance performance, really thinking about as a purpose-driven organization, what does the S look like, and then clearly how do they manifest around the E. Going forward, they're going to be able to communicate, I think, really differently around the impact they're having in the world and the return they're having on their aggregate set of programs. So I think it's an exciting time to recognize that the ESG work has been a strong down payment, and now the question is, what do we do next? And I think that company is really representing a series of best practices in the overall space.
Absolutely fascinating. And what's top of mind for the IROs that Breakwater Strategy is engaging with so often these days?
Yeah, I think it's really about the work that's being asked of the IRO. When I was talking to somebody yesterday and they reflected on the changing role of the IRO, it's clearly substantially different and significantly more elevated. What that individual is telling me, and many of our clients are experiencing, is a need to play a role at the board level, a need to play a much broader role at the C-suite level, participate in shaping the strategic environment in which folks plan and think about operating, and then inputting into the financial process. Incremental to that, working across the organization to set up a more federated communications architecture so that the marketing agenda, the internal communications, and external communications are all working together holistically in order to drive that. Our view is that that elevated IRO needs a different set of tools and capabilities going forward to win, and we're excited about the opportunity to support that need.
Absolutely. Extra roles, extra responsibilities, extra tools. I mean, one of the talks of the town is about AI, artificial intelligence.
Sure.
From Breakwater's perspective, is that coming up in conversation, and what's the general feeling? What's the advice to IROs given the rise of AI?
Yeah, one of my partners, Steve Weber, who was a leader at the Global Business Network and then monitor and was also a 30-year professor at Berkeley, is I think it's fair to say global leader in generative AI. One of the key areas that he's focused on is how do you add client value in an AI context? And really answering that question, how do you pivot from the transaction to the value add, and how do you think about that? Steve recently had an opportunity to work with the FTC around the question of generative AI, and he and I actually had an opportunity to speak with one of the IROs I consider to be a leader in the application of AI last week around his tools and thinking around how to really advance the overall capability and set of processes in an AI context. I think the headline for us is the value that folks like Breakwater are going to provide is in a combination of the strategic thinking and being able to activate across the collective set of capabilities so we have a holistic strategy that helps the company elevate its value.
Absolutely fascinating. And just finally, from Breakwater's Strategy's perception of the rest of 2024 with all these macro pressures, certainly there's the federal election looming next year, already a lot of buzz around that. In UK, Europe, there's inflationary pressures, supply chain disruption.
Sure.
Any particular guidance, crystal ball gazing that you on behalf of your team can offer IROs out there?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, James. When I think about what happened in the first quarter, over 75% of companies in the S&P 500 exceeded their top line or their bottom line guidance. And then the question is what's next and how to navigate through a number of the forces that you described. What's the macro going to be? How should we think about the Fed? In the context of the broader geopolitical context, how should we think about that? What's the impact of oil? So there are a number of key variables. I think one of the things that Breakwater brings to the table that I'm excited about is the ability to partner with companies and IROs to think about a variety of scenarios over the balance of the year that help them really frame out what that could look like and provide incremental transparency for investors around what's the art of the possible, so that when you are providing incremental guidance, developing your earnings script, having a non-deal roadshow, you're doing that that grounded in a sense of this was the range of possibilities that we looked at, here's the way that we're guiding. I think incremental to that, we're advising companies to really look at free cash flow per share as an incremental guidance metric to really bring to ground the performance. Then as we pivot into 2024, really giving investors that longer term view of the way you think those scenarios are developing so that investors can have real confidence that the strategy is working, the management team has a set of processes and approaches that are framing the future, and that the capital allocation model is aligned to and investing in the right areas for growth.